Okay. As chair of the Hampton Falls School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the Hampton Falls School Board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number: 646-876-9923, and the webinar ID is 974-5528-3962, or by clicking on the following website address listed on the agenda, which is https://us02web.zoom.us/j/974-552-83962. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the SAU 21 office at www.sau21.org. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-926-8992, extension 114, or email dtuite@sau21.org. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking the roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under right to know law. Deb, can we take the roll call attendance? Present, family in and out.
Jason Farias.
Present, alone.
Jill Swayze.
Present, family in the room.
John Bailey.
Present, alone in the room.
And Anthony Lang.
Present, family in and out.
Thank you, Deb. First item on the agenda is public comment to the agenda items themselves. If there's anyone in attendance to have public comment regarding the agenda, if you'd raise your hand, Deb will give you access to make a comment. Okay, since I see no one raising their hand, we will move on to the next item on the agenda. Minutes from our November 10th meeting. Can I get a motion on these minutes?
I will make a motion to approve the November 10th, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Deb, can we take the roll call vote?
So one thing I want to note is that the way this motion is written is that it says motion to approve the minutes of November 10th, 19th, and December 1st. So when I take the vote, it'll do Jill and John all the way through. Are you comfortable with that?
Oh, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So do you want to do minutes for do a vote for each set of minutes?
Now what I'm saying is, so that's what I want to ask you guys. Did you want to vote on them separately or as one? Because in this motion, it's written as it's one for all three.
Oh, let's do one for all three.
Okay. Greg Parrish.
Yes.
Yes.
John Farias.
Yes.
Jill Swayze.
Yes.
John Bailey.
Yes.
And Anthony Lang.
Yes.
Vote taken for all three.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is reports, and we'll start with the principal's report. Beth?
Hey, Greg, can I make a comment before we go to the reports, just real quick?
You bet.
So Hampton Falls board members are probably aware that we lost our facilities director from Seabrook over the weekend. A terrific guy, a great member of that school community and the community. You may remember, board members who've been here with us for a while may remember that we had put together a crisis team under Caroline had done a lot of work on that, and that Raymond Pillsbury really did that work. It involves people from all of our districts. And my main reason for bringing this up here for your board meeting is just to express our appreciation to Beth, the board, and the Hampton Falls staff for the work that they were part of with that crisis team in supporting their colleagues in Seabrook. It's very much appreciated. We have great strength when we pull together around these kinds of initiatives and support one another in time of need. And I know I speak for the Seabrook administration and staff in saying how much they appreciate people from across the SAU supporting them over these last few days, given this very difficult time in their district. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bill. I also echo your sentiment. He sounded like a wonderful, wonderful guy, and I know he and Alan LaJoy go way back, I think, to first grade. So it's a loss on many levels, but thank you. As far as a principal's report, I feel like when I write to you a week in advance of a meeting, it's drastically different a week later. So I'll bring you more up to date, but we had a couple of cases of COVID pre-Thanksgiving, and we were back at full strength today. So I know that's the 2 week or close to 2 week time frame. And then in the interim, the guidelines changed for quarantine from exposure. So we had everybody back full strength today, all staff healthy, all kids healthy with a couple of absences. But, in that regard, we didn't really get that Thanksgiving Day surge that I think we were somewhat expecting, but all healthy today. So I'm happy to report that. The end of trimester 1 was on Friday, the 4th. Well, for the kids, it was the 3rd. They didn't have school on the 4th. And we hope to have our report cards out on the 15th of December. Our elementary crew is new at Power School, as are their parents. So we'll be getting all that information out at the end of this week. In terms of the school, there's obviously very little student activities going on that, normally this time of year we'd be reporting on, but still hard at work. And I just want to also publicly thank our staff for pulling together when a couple of teammates were out, just really dedicated to the kids and, providing them the education that they deserve in school. So with that said, are there any questions, or I'm happy to answer anything?
Thank you, Beth. What do you, again, I reiterate the thank you to the staff and the leadership there, obviously starting with you. So, Beth, what can you forecast the next couple of weeks there? What are your feelings for going into the Christmas season, in the holiday season, and any feeling for how things are going to go with respect to, I guess, attendance, or, as well as you can forecast?
I don't think in this climate you really can forecast. I think I've learned that. What I have learned over the last few weeks is Heather Boyd and I our school nurse work pretty closely hand in hand. We take it a week at a time. We keep people as safe as we possibly can. And in the school, it's working. It's working. And obviously we don't have COVID in the school, but it comes from, outside, as we all know, everywhere we go. Another thing that we have learned is that perhaps in some of the cases we've had, we probably didn't need to send as many students out as we did. I think when you go through that the first time, it's like, oh, you know, we need to send this group out or that group out. And Heather just participated in a 6-hour course last Friday on contact tracing. So when we have a case that somebody from within the school calls us to let us know that they tested positive, what we do is get right into, you know, classrooms, look at desks where children are. We know where they are. We know we can look at hallways. We can always go back and rely on a camera for hallway activity, that type of thing. But we have learned that we probably, I think our pod system is really working. So if one pod is affected, it's actually never the whole pod, unless it's a teacher. So for example, in the first grade situation or kindergarten situation, looking back, Heather and I probably could have kept more students in than we did. We just happened to be on vacation and it was hard to work through it, you know, over Thanksgiving. But I think we're learning as we go, no doubt about it. I think we are extremely up to date. Our nurses in the SAU wide have been remarkable. I think Heather has done an outstanding job keeping up to date with all of the data and all that. And I think what I've learned to do with her is let's not respond to fear. Let's not respond emotionally. Let's look at our data and what do we have in front of us, and then we respond thoughtfully to that.
Excellent. That's extremely reassuring. And the fact that you're constantly reviewing and revising and staying up to date is fantastic to hear. That's good.
We have also learned that, like, even outside where, you know, obviously it's freezing out now, but you know, let's leave masks on, let the kids have a mask break, but we keep them on. You know, that type of thing. We're learning as we go. I think as COVID surges all around Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire, you know, we're trying to respond to the data that we have in front of us. And obviously we want to all keep children in school. That's where they belong, but only if it's safe.
Yeah, obviously. Good.
If we're safe, we're in. If we're not, then we proceed with caution.
Excellent.
And no, I cannot predict the future. I'm sorry.
I really wish you could.
I do think in the next 2 weeks leading up to Christmas, I think we're good.
Beth, thank you, because I agree with everything that's been said, and it's clear that the model you put in place has been effective. And I know instances out of state in other schools that friends and family attend that they've not had nearly the success and luck we have. But I do have to ask if we wouldn't be remiss in considering being proactive post-holiday, given the numbers going up. We have seen that remote works for every grade. And I was surprised to hear from a lot of parents that even the kindergartners did quite well during the time they had to be remote, which is wonderful news. But I do wonder if we shouldn't at least entertain the discussion about that 2-week buffer post-holiday break.
So we've only had really one situation across the SAU that resulted in a school going down. I get asked all the time about numbers in communities versus, you know, schools being open, and I personally have found very little correlation, if maybe no correlation, between the number of cases in a community and the impact on us. It can be one case. In fact, I think I said this to this board before. The Seabrook closing of K to 4 was the result of one of our adults and where that adult was placed with respect to the cohorts, right? So it's much more about individual situations that, as Beth just laid out, we've spent most of our time over the last 4 weeks, unfortunately, focused on this and tracing within grade levels and sending grade levels or classes within grade levels or individuals within classes home. I'm glad I got that question now. I would have, before Thanksgiving, I would have said, because you heard me say, yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I don't necessarily think that's necessary. I think it's more about the individual situations. If people follow the rules that have been put in place with result of their travel,
That's what worries me.
well,
But
it worries
otherwise, I
me too.
agree.
But I have to say, I've not seen off of Thanksgiving, what I thought I might see based on some parents' comments to me prior to Thanksgiving. I've not seen that. So, I do think, I understand that some districts closed essentially or went remote essentially from Thanksgiving through the 19th of January. And that's not a terrible strategy. I don't think we've seen anything in the last 2 weeks that would make me recommend to you that we do that in the 2 weeks following Christmas.
Well, that is a little reassuring to hear, and I do understand that once we go remote, the metrics for coming back in get more complicated. So I certainly am not suggesting this lightly. That's why I wanted to sort of entertain the discussion and hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, Jill. And, had we gone remote right after Thanksgiving, we'd be out. And today we were in such great shape. I obviously want to keep everybody safe, not just our students, but also our staff. But I don't know, I hope I can continue to respond thoughtfully to the data that sits in front of us. And if it's not there, why not be in school? And so far, I think we're doing that. If we're not, I'll be the first one to say, yeah, let's go.
And we've done that, Jill. I'm not sure you may not have seen the number. I mean, we had a high school plan that was slated to actually start on the 7th, and we didn't do it. And some people aren't happy, but we knew of 9 positive cases among our student body. It's interesting. I wrote that letter in the afternoon. I said we know of 9. By the time I sent it, we knew of 12. So it didn't make sense. And really, that's the process we've used, really going through those data with every decision. And yeah, the high school, as we were looking a couple days out of them coming back, it is more complicated coming back in from remote. We're at Seabrook, for example, the middle school is coming back in, and we're going to come back in on the 11th, not on the 4th, to give the teachers. First of all, we have some teachers coming back from leave, right, that have been on the FFCRA leave, and they're going to be coming back with some others who've chosen to, or who've been able to find other ways to accommodate their ADA needs, and they're going to come back, but that means additional PPE and other things for them. So we, I think very wisely, the principal bought the week in terms of getting all those things in place before our goal is then to bring kids back on the 11th. So yeah, what we've been trying to, I sent a class grade level at Northampton home today because of particular situations with respect to adults, some student situations and whatever that had us tracing those and then making a decision about how far we needed to go into the class or grade level in terms of keeping everyone safe. And we're doing that every day.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks. I appreciate hearing all that. And by the end, you can all add epidemiologist or virologist to your resumes. So expand your job opportunities.
Beth and Bill, how much data was provided to you in helping manage this as we move on? Because we did go to school in September and basically took a day week by week.
If what you're asking me is, do we know more because we had some schools that went back 5 days a week? I think we do. I think we have had a whole education that, for example, SAU 16 Exeter hasn't had.
So that has helped you make decisions.
And certainly, I don't want to say that and have somebody saying great, and using the expression like guinea pigs. It hasn't been anything like that. It's a matter of learning from
Right.
those individual cases and learning from our data.
I also think the outside activity has slowed down quite a bit among families. And I do think families were pretty honest with us when it came to Thanksgiving travel and just, sent us emails and information, and our children will, of course, quarantine when we return, and, we can buy back 4 days, thankfully. So all was good there, although I understand your concern, Jill.
I appreciate
Jill,
that. Thank you.
Jill, are you good? You good?
I'm good.
Okay. Is there any additional questions for Beth?
I have just one, Greg. Real quick, Beth. Actually, to your letter, I'd just like to give you a chance to speak to the outdoors activities you're putting together there. If what's the status on the rink, and it looks like the snowshoeing trails and that sort of thing, moving along well, or what's
I'd
this?
be happy to. I've got a nice group of parents that's forming as we speak.
Good.
And, we are going to put a rink out back in right field of the ballpark. And what we're trying to do is create new and, fun outdoor activities for the kids and families on weekends, of course. But to give them, to keep them outside as best we can in a safe, fun way. And we had a staff meeting last Wednesday that was hysterical. We had a lot of laughs. It was fun. I sometimes forget, even though we're remote, it's fun to pull everybody together and banter back and forth with ideas. But the idea is to create a winter wonderland out back. Have snowshoeing trails all through the woods there. We still have the outdoor spaces that we're using for break time. We want to create a little sledding hill for the little ones, probably the big ones too, on the small hill out there. And then the skating rink, I don't know if you folks know it, but Kelly Trottier on our staff is a former champion ice skater. So she also has come up with, has come up with tons of ideas. So we have plans in place to collect a pile of different size skates for kids that don't have them, to create ways for anybody disabled to be able to skate with some type of a device. We have people looking into that. How are we going to teach the little ones how to skate? Probably with milk crates, because they're just tall enough to hang on to it and skate around with it. All those types of ideas are beginning to form. And the group of parents that when I reached out to all parents, I got a nice group back. I think we're going to call ourselves Freezing for a Reason, which has a catchy name. But they're going to help me assemble it, and then help us to maintain it. We'll probably create a whole network of people to help with all kinds of things. I certainly don't want to put the burden on Alan or any of that crew. So all kinds of different things in store. So that our rink will be assembled probably right after Christmas.
Great.
Which
Thank you.
apparently from all the people I've spoken to, the sweet spot for outdoor ice skating in New England is about January 1st to middle of February. So the whole fall, I begged Mother Nature for good weather, and I got it. So now we're hoping for cold weather.
Good.
Sounds
Good.
great.
Sounds good. Thank you, Beth.
Will the rink be accessible after school hours?
Yes, it will be.
Awesome.
Obviously, we don't want to create any gatherings and things of that nature. There are no sides to it, so hockey will not be obviously encouraged. When I talked to the people that set up the rink across the street at Governor Weir Park, they said hockey wasn't an issue with them either. Kids want to bang each other against boards and things. We won't have any.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it'll be open obviously on weekends, much like our basketball court was used. Obviously, anytime after school hours on the weekend, people are welcome to, it belongs to Hampton Falls.
Great.
With all the appropriate lines up.
I actually have one question, Beth, and again, I reiterate everyone saying how great the remote has been. And like Jill, I was very happy to hear the kind of optimistic change and tone from administration and everyone. So that's great to hear. So kind of building on that, is there an opportunity as we get more data to look at opening full day keeping those cohort groups together a little bit sooner. I know, especially with me, I see my kids go out because it's nice out and there's a lot of cohort mixing just in play, outside. I'm a little concerned about that moving inside and maybe causing more problems, and maybe the longer we can keep them in school.
Yeah, Anthony, I know I actually thought of you earlier today because you make reference to that in meetings, and I probably should re-explain why we're in that position. When we began the school year, in order to put this whole plan together, it was all about numbers. And we had all of these restrictions. We have to have people 6 feet apart, which when you put them in a classroom, the max number of students in one of our larger classrooms is 15. With that said, we also honored all of the different needs of our staff. So we actually had 7 staff members that are not in our building at all. So what I did from there was I took all the numbers that I did have, students and staff, and I put all the guidelines together, and we created classrooms full of students, but I had to spread everybody pretty thin, and I didn't have anybody left over. So I also had to follow a teacher contract and an educational associate contract, and that gives them a specific amount of prep time. So when I have everybody in school, which the most important time is when the children are there. So in order to do that, I spread everybody very thin, and then I owe them their prep time and a lunch. So that's the reason for the early release. And when things do loosen up, I'm very optimistic about that. When they loosen up, when we begin to get more adults back, then we can get back to a normal situation and day.
That's incredibly
And
helpful. It really
Yeah,
is.
okay.
Like hearing more of that, and I think easier to articulate out into the community. I get asked that question a lot since I've been on the board, and I really do appreciate that level of detail.
Yeah, and it's again all about numbers. I think that's why Lincoln Ackerman's been able to be back in. We hit numbers with kids and adults and rooms and spaces and outdoors, and I mean, I feel fortunate we were able to put the puzzle together that way. But when we get everybody back, we'll be back to a
Yeah, you're a master
day.
Tetris player. I have a feeling that you're very good at that game, because I don't know how you pulled it off in the school, and being able to shift as people have come back in from trimester to trimester. I've give you a lot of credit.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And while you say that, I just want to welcome our other families back. We've got quite a few kids that came back, so happy to have them. But it's all about numbers, Anthony.
Yeah.
Hi, Beth. I just have one quick question and a quick comment. To your earlier point of lessons learned along the way as you've gone through this, is there much interaction and discussion between you and the other principals and the nursing community in terms of what various schools are learning? So it's not just isolated to us, but we're benefiting from what Northampton's learned, and Seabrook, and they're benefiting from us?
Yeah, absolutely. Susan Snyder and in Northampton and I have become very close friends. We talk several times a week, and we banter back and forth with all kinds of things we've learned. We've also pulled Michelle Witt in. She's the new principal in Southampton. She's in a much smaller situation, but still lessons learned along the way are still shared. What do you do about this, and what do you do about that? And and even at the start of the year, what's working well? What can I steal from you? And then what can I steal from you? So it's actually been a really nice camaraderie that we've established between the whole group of us. And as soon as Seabrook comes back in, we'll be doing the same thing with them. But we're here to share any good ideas that we have and share any faux pas we've had as well.
Okay.
And beyond, John. I mean, I look at schools all over Massachusetts to see what they're doing, and I'll steal anything.
Okay. No, that's great.
Add to that, in that the nurses are a pretty tight group across
Yes.
SAU 21, and we meet monthly. They're on the Dr. Chan calls every week, and we're sharing that information together and learning from each other. Some schools are more in than others, so they definitely share their best practices with each other. It's really helpful.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
And Heather brings all that back. And Heather and I I mean, we were talking Thanksgiving Day, so we, it's a lot of communication, but, and it's constantly changing. So we do try to stay on top of all of it.
He's a leader in the group for sure.
Well, that's great to hear. And my last comment is just to make sure that, you know, we're documenting as much of this as we possibly can in terms of the lessons learned. So we don't just develop, but we also refine the playbook as, you know, God forbid, things like this come up out again in the future.
Well, also, John, just as another addition to that comment, last Friday I had all the different pods before we changed them for the second trimester get together and, you know, what are the takeaways that we can incorporate into our school next year? Everything we're doing is not bad. I mean, we actually are enjoying, excuse me, some of it. I mean, discipline's really low. Why? Maybe the distancing is good. I mean, obviously we're not going to walk around with 6-foot poles for the next couple of years, but the reduction in transitions, the delivery of a snack, things like that have just really been good for us. And then I think a lot of the focus in academics, teachers are they're finding it very focused the way that we have it right now. And we'll just, we're going to get together as a leadership team next Monday. And what we'll do is compile all those ideas together and incorporate what we can into our planning for next year when we hope to be back to normal. If there ever is a normal again.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for Beth? Thanks, Beth. Matt.
Thank you. We have included the monthly year-to-date expenditure report as well as the monthly year-to-date revenue report in board docs. I just want to briefly discuss the revenue side. Our expenditures are on track. We're doing well, but on the revenue side, there are some new additions. So as you know, we did receive some ESSER funds back in May as part of the CARES stimulus package. That was based on Title I funding. So Hampton Falls only received just over $9,000. However, recently the state of New Hampshire announced a new funding source, the Supplemental Public School Response Fund, for a total of $45 million that was allocated across the state. It was based entirely on enrollment numbers. So what they did was allocated $200 per student in every school district in New Hampshire. And that was designed to provide relief and support for any unanticipated costs that were associated with the safe opening and operation of schools while navigating the COVID pandemic. So for Hampton Falls, we did receive $43,000. You will not see that reflected in the expenditure report as a credit. It is treated as offsetting revenue, so it will be reflected in the revenue report. And really, it's we've received the funds, and we merely need to associate expenditures to the funds for accounting purposes. And they had to be COVID-related expenses, not budgeted previously, and the funds could not be covered by any other type of grant funding. We had already started this process when we were preliminarily approved for FEMA funding, which was since rescinded by FEMA when they determined that schools were no longer eligible for that FEMA funding. So we have been able to allocate those funds, and that runs the gamut from touchless automatic flush valves in our bathrooms to PPE, so that'd be masks, gloves, face guards. We have different disinfectants, hand sanitizers, electrostatic sprayers, sneeze guards and barriers, and those type of expenditures. So We did receive those funds, and that is reflected in our revenue. I also want to just briefly discuss a potential revenue piece of legislation that could affect revenue. So as you're all aware, we do receive adequacy aid through the state. That is collected versus swept local tax assessment on property. And so typically most of the adequacy aid is funded via local funds. However, and it doesn't match up perfectly. There's either a differential where the town collected more swept funds than adequacy aid, or collected less funds than adequacy aid. If we collected less, then the state provides that differential. If you collected more, then the town keeps that differential. So Hampton Falls collects slightly under what we receive in adequacy funds, so the state supplements. However, this new piece of legislation would change those rules, and any town that collected more would then send that differential back to the state, and they would allocate it across other school districts. So what if this effectively is in years past, there was what was called the donor towns. So that would be a similar situation. This is predicated by the new, court ruling on adequacy aid, and the state does need to resolve that as far as how they fund school adequate education. Hampton Falls would be a beneficiary to this, a slight beneficiary to this legislation, but there are roughly 18% of towns that would lose revenue. So this has shown some pretty widespread bipartisan support, at the state level, in large part due to the fact that 78% of towns would benefit from this. So regardless of political party, most of your state reps would be in favor of it if they happen to represent a town that benefits. It's to be seen whether it does pass and whether it be vetoed. There might be enough support for an override of any veto. So potential veto, but I just wanted to put this on your radar because Hampton Falls is right at the edge, so you could go either way as far as being a recipient or a donor, depending on how the demographics shape up in future years. But it is a potential change, and it could potentially affect future revenue sources. So I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Matt, you asked for questions on the expenditure report as well now, or just the revenue?
Absolutely. Any of the reports, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, so for the expenditure report on page 4, can you just speak to the equipment line where we are over budget?
Yes. So that's so actually I had a brief conversation with Greg about this account the other day. That is due to the kitchen freezer refrigerator installation.
Okay.
So we will be funding that via the Building Maintenance Expendable Trust. However, we can't request those funds from the trust until we invoice the final amount, which we do, and the project is complete, and we invoice the final amount. So we just invoiced, and we are requesting the check. So once we receive that check from the trust, that account will actually it won't even show up on that expenditure report, because that will show up on the revenue side, but in effect that will go back down to zero, because that's $35,000. So, but that's the reason why it's over, is because of the freezer refrigerator installation.
Okay, understood. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions for Matt?
No. All
Thank you,
set.
Matt. Next
welcome.
item on the agenda is the voting at LAS for the town. There is no action required on this tonight, so we're going to table this for the time being. We're waiting to hear from the select board on what they want to do at this point. So moving on, we'll go to item 6, policies, first read. I think this is you, Bill, right?
Yeah, so you have a set of policies recommended out by the policy subcommittee in our normal process of considering them and trying to make sure our policy manuals get updated and that there's consistency brought across our policy manuals. This is a first read, which requires no action. The action on these would actually happen at the joint board meeting in January. There may be others that interest you, but there are 2 in particular that I would point out to you. One is the policy dealing with sexual harassment and Title IX issues that was made necessary by changes in the regulations promulgated by the U.S. Department of Education. Some of those regulations have gotten a lot of attention. There actually is some talk now that they may be walked back. But we had to revise our policies to be consistent with the regulations put forward by the department around those kinds of investigations and bringing forward of complaints. The other policy is a policy that we brought forward to the group around equity, to make sure that that we were doing things to make sure that all of our students have opportunities within all of our schools, that students can see themselves in our textbook materials, all those kinds of really important issues. This is one that there's been a group across the SAU looking at these issues and looking at professional learning in these areas and curriculum development, professional development, textbook selection, all those kinds of issues, and this policy is a great starting point for that work. Again, we looked at policies like this from across the country, and there's a group of people, Dr. Arkillian, Dr. Hobbs, number of your teachers are part of these ongoing discussions. So if you have questions, let any of us know. Many of these policies, which fall particularly into the health and social emotional area, you can direct those questions to Dr. Arkillian, or you can certainly send them to me, and I'll make sure that they get answered by the right people. Thanks.
Any questions for Bill? Thanks, Bill. Okay, next item on the agenda would be personnel retirements. So we'll be entering a non-public. Do we know what non-public we're going into?
I just
David?
I sent a link to this group for a non-public meeting, just because we have 6 attendees, one of which is a call-in listener. It's too much to put on hold.
Okay, and David, what promotion?
What type?
Yeah, is it?
Oh, sorry about that. I can.
It's item A, right?
A.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
David,
so I'll make a motion to go into non-public per NH State RSA 91-A:3 Roman numeral 2, item number A, the dismissal, promotion, compensation for any public employee or disciplining of such employee, or the investigation charges him or her unless affected. They have a right to a meeting. So, David, you've emailed everybody a link to this meeting?
Sure, just a note for the attendees here. Deb will keep this meeting open. We will go to a different meeting, which will be non-public, and then come back to this one as well. Beth, did you have a question?
I was asking you if we had to leave this meeting. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
will.
We will.
We log out of this meeting, correct?
Yes, that will keep it open for us. Yep.
Okay, see you there.
So
See you
Greg,
there.
Yeah,
you're doing the motion. Do we do have?
yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Can I get a second on non-public?
I'll say,
So John Bailey second,
Yes,
and I'm assuming it's a mark that unanimous.
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see Beth, but why don't we move forward? Anthony, if you want to go ahead and make the motion to resume, we can take a roll call on that.
Make a motion to come out of non-public.
Can I get a second?
I will second.
That's
Deb, would you
Anthony,
like,
that's Jill, and it's 7:34. Okay. Greg Parrish,
yes.
Jason Farias,
Yes.
Jill Swayze,
Yes.
John Bailey,
Yes.
Anthony Lang.
Yes.
Beth is back on, so vote taken. Give me 1 second so I can bring Beth back in.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you. I'd like to make a motion to accept the retirements of Barb Cutting, Jim Cutting, Michelle Cordy, Melody Guyette, and Chris Lemarese with much regret. I'd like to thank each of you for everything you've done. And it's your service to our community will never be forgotten. So thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Is that John? So,
Jason.
Jason, okay. I will read off your names and then I'll have to go in individually and do them later.
Yep.
Because they are in here separate. So Greg Parrish,
Yes.
John Farias.
Jason, yes.
I mean, Jason, I keep doing that. I'm so sorry. Jill Swayze,
Yes.
John Bailey,
Yes, with appreciation and regret.
Mhm.
and Anthony Lang.
Yes, and thank you to all.
Thank you. Vote taken.
Taken. Okay. I won't list them, but under 9, there's our next meeting dates. The only one I will point out is next Thursday, we have the SAU joint board meeting. And before we adjourn, I'd like to thank all the parents. Without your support, doing what you're doing, following the procedures that Beth and her team have put together, we couldn't still be in school, or the kids couldn't be. And so I want to thank you for doing what you can on your end to help us out. Finally, Bill, I'd like to thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
It's not finishing the way you wanted.
No, not at all.
Sorry to hear that. It's been an honor.
Thank you.
Likewise.
I'd like to second that too, Greg. Well said.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill.
I wish you the best.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And again, sorry it's ending this way.
Stay safe. Come visit.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
I'm still
that
calling you
being-
every day, Bill.
No, you're not.
I'm gonna stop by your house and say hi. I'll pick you up every once in a while and bring you up.
I'm going to try sleeping in. We're going to see how that works.
Yeah.
First and last Olis.
Yeah.
I have to do that. That's a given.
Every Tuesday.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
That being said, can I get a motion to adjourn unless somebody has something else?
I have one last quick question. Greg, for the meeting, the Hampton Falls next meeting on January 12th.
Yes.
Is that beginning at 6 or 6:30? I had it in my calendar at 6.
I think it starts at 6, John, because if I'm correct, Matt, aren't we doing our budget presentation at 6:30? Isn't that how we?
Right. We have our public hearing that evening, so I'll verify those times and make sure it's it may be 7. It's a public hearing, but let me just verify that. So
So
I'll leave it. Actually, I mean, it's up to you. What do you prefer?
so for Jason, Jill, and Anthony, generally we try to do our public hearing on the budget the same night as our school board meeting, so we don't have another meeting.
Mhm.
If that's the case, we try to start our meeting at 6 o'clock and adjourn for the public hearing, or at least complete our meeting prior to the public hearing. And in doing so, that we've kind of purposefully have kept our agenda items very light for our meeting so that we can do that. So that is the game plan. That's how I'm seeing this, Matt. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how we've done it the past several years.
Yeah, so we'll schedule 6 o'clock for the board meeting, 6:30 for the public hearing. This will be via Zoom. However, to that point, actually, I thank you for, I meant to ask you, it looks like the deliberative session is going to need to be in person after consulting with legal counsel. So we have two options. We can either go with the cafeteria or the Winnicott Auditorium. Now, I will say that the town of Hampton Falls will be doing their deliberative session at the Winnicott Auditorium. I would recommend, just in the interest of space and public safety, that we do ours at the Winnicott Auditorium as well.
I would agree with that.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. We'll schedule it in that fashion.
So they did get back to you.
They did, and we confirmed their reservation, and we won't be charging you though.
Do we as a board need to take action on that or no?
I don't.
I'm not going to worry about it. Forget it. Forget
Yeah,
asking.
I mean, you certainly can. It
No,
doesn't
no.
hurt.
Let's leave. It's fine. Let's leave it.
And I will be in touch with, because it's, the moderator is in control of that or
Correct.
that meeting. So I will reach out to the moderator and just run it by, so that's JP. Just make sure that he's on board with it as well. So.
Okay. John, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it does. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Matt. We all set then, Matt?
We are. Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bill,
Thank
you
you.
you'll hear from me.
Bill, did you get a puppy?